Okay, so now that we've drawn these surfaces, let's go ahead and move and talk about how to actually select them. In the tool palette, you will see this black mouse sort of icon here, and the shortcut for that is V for your keyboard. And what the V command does is essentially turns your cursor into a black pointer. And what I have the ability to do here is click once, and this is selecting the surface itself. And if I click twice, this is also not only selecting the surface, but it's also selecting the lines. So let's try that again. I'm going to zoom out and zoom into this 20-foot rectangle surface here. I have the ability to click once, and again, I'm just selecting the surface, not the line work that creates the surface. And if I click twice, now the blue is extending over to the line work as well, and I'm able to select all of it. A little bit later in the course, we're going to see how we're going to do the triple click, and that's going to select all of the faces, creating a volume. But for now, because we're in a 2D situation, I'm showing you how to do a single click and the double click, so you're able to understand how to select everything or just select that one thing that you need. Also, something really important to note, in order to select multiple things at once, like you saw me delete a few things already, but let's say you wanted to delete all of the side surfaces of this mouse, what you can do is, V on your keyboard for the command of the cursor, and then select the first surface, and while holding Shift, we're going to select the second surface, and while holding Shift again, you'll see that it says plus or minus on that cursor. And so right now, SketchUp is allowing us to select multiple. And so when I actually get out of here and hit delete, you can select multiple things to delete at once or manipulate at once, depending on the command that you're exploring. Again, so if I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and select, and then Shift to select an additional thing, Shift to select something else, and then once I hit delete, I can make sure that all of those are deleted at once. So on the topic of surfaces, what I want to talk about here is something to really know about SketchUp is that everything that we do is actually going to be working with surfaces. So for example, you saw me create this 2D and you saw me create these rectangles here. I'm going to wipe the screen just for a second because what I want to show you is going back to this sort of volumetric cube or rectangle that I had earlier in the demonstration. Everything is working as a surface. And what that means is this is a hollow, essentially, cube. When I select this, I am only going to be able to select this surface. And if I hit delete on my keyboard, I have essentially deleted the surface that makes up that face, right? And now I am inside this hollow cube that is made up of just surfaces coming together. And so what's really important is when we're manipulating the masses of volumes, we have to keep in mind that what we're actually doing is manipulating the line and the surface, not an actual solid mass. Something that I think is going to be very valuable to you as we move on in this demonstration as well is the Control Z feature. So everyone just saw me delete this surface that made up the facade of this cube, but let's say I did that on accident. Now what I can do is hit Control Z or Command Z depending on the platform you're working in, and that's going to bring my surface back. And so Command Z or Control Z is reserved for, oops, let's go backwards and reinstate the steps before. So for example, I can go in here and delete this and delete this and delete this, and then realize, oh no, I actually wanted to keep this line, or I wanted to keep this face, and you can sort of walk yourself backwards until you're back to a completed cube in this example, or wherever it is in your project that you needed to revert back to. Again, if you delete something, Control Z, and the biggest reminder here is we're working with lines and surfaces, not solid spaces. So let's keep going here. Let's say that we wanted to continue modeling, and something that's going to be really nice feature of SketchUp for us here is the Endpoint Snap. When I'm drawing, I essentially want to have things that are locked into each other, or either, you know, on the face. Right now that I'm hovering on this face of the cube, SketchUp is telling me your line tool or this sort of cursor is on face. So anything that I'm going to be drawing here is going to be on the face. Now, the endpoint snap is what appears when you're on the endpoint, and it highlights as green, so you know that you're actually intersecting at this point. There is also the midpoint snap, and that's essentially highlighting the midpoint between this line and this line, which then if I click here and I take it all the way up, showing that blue axis being activated, I know that I've done a vertical line that now has split up my surface into two, right? So again, the endpoint and the midpoint are really powerful tools, so you're able to actually draw and with accuracy, and you're able to maneuver SketchUp modeling in 3D space in a way that can give you a little bit of more snapping and control over the geometry that you are creating. Okay, so let's go into our next command, which for us is going to be the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool can be activated by hitting R on your keyboard, or you can select it from the tool palette and it's the first rectangle to the left. I'm going to go ahead and go into a top view just for you to be able to see the 2D situation. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select the origin point, and then I am going to manually type in that I want this to be a 20 and then apostrophe for feet, and then comma by 20 and then apostrophe and then enter. So what that just created was a 20 by 20 rectangle 2D surface. And I'm gonna just take these dimensions just to make sure that I am doing what I'm saying I'm doing, and that is a 20 by 20 2D dimension. Now we're gonna leave that one alone, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit R for rectangle again. And just to the side of this, I'm gonna create the origin point, and without clicking anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and make this one a 40, and I'm gonna do apostrophe for the foot mark, comma, and then another 40 for 40, and then apostrophe for that foot marker. And I'm gonna hit enter, and this just created a 40 by 40. I'm gonna go ahead and do the dimensions again, just so we're verifying what I'm drawing. And now I've essentially shown you how to do rectangles by typing in specific dimensions and denoting the foot mark. Let's say you wanted to do a 60 by 10 inch cube or something like that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select a R for rectangle, and I'm going to go to the right of this 40 footer. And what I'm going to type into the command box is going to be 60 for the foot. I'm going to put the apostrophe, and then 10 for the inches, comma, which is now my way of telling SketchUp this is the first measurement. Now let's go to the second measurement, which is going to be 60 by 10. So whenever we're doing the comma, just know that you're essentially doing a separation. You're telling SketchUp, let's go this direction for this amount, and then let's go to that direction for this amount. And now when I take my dimension tool, we should have a 60 foot by 10 and a 60 foot by 10. And that was by typing in the foot in numbers, or the feet in numbers, excuse me, and the inches as well. Now, that was a sort of technical way of doing it, right? And earlier in the tutorial, I showed how to do it sort of more freeform and manual. And if you wanted to do it that way, you would simply click the origin point and then drag out however you wanted this to be, and then click. Right? So remember, SketchUp is a click and click program. So we're going to click, and then I'm going to go ahead and click again wherever I want this to sort of end, and there it is. Now, my recommendation is try to work as accurate as possible. So if you are sort of just clicking around and guessworking, you know, chances are you probably are making assumptions instead of being very precise on the geometry. So I would definitely recommend, as we move forward, doing the more accurate typed in dimensions when possible.